This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply. This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Hello and welcome to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner, the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Women's Running Stories is on a 2-week break. This is week 2, so I will be back next week with a new episode of the podcast. For this week, I bring you a REAIR of the episode featuring Verna Volker. If you are not familiar with Verna, she is an ultra trail runner and the founder of Native Women Run, which used to be called Native Women Running, so you'll hear that in this episode. This was published back at the end of 2023, and Verna shares her story up until that time. Since then, she has accomplished many running goals. Among them, she has completed a 100-mile trail race, and she joined the Native Women Run team in Australia to run the 2025 Sydney Marathon. That was just on August 31st. Verna is also the co-host of the new podcast Earth Movers with Stephanie Flippin and Alison Mariella Desir. It is a trail podcast reclaiming the narrative, and I have the terrific joy of being the producer of this show. The episodes are so good. Right now we are in the midst of season 1. We'll be airing 11 episodes for this first season. And in particular, I want to highlight episode 4 because it is a great follow-up to this episode. Verna sat down with her co-host Stephanie to share all the details about her first 100-mile finish, which was the 2025 Redwoods 100-mile challenge, and that just happened a little over a month ago in early August. So yes, Verna did run 100 miles, and then just a few weeks later, she ran a marathon in Sydney, Australia. I will link to episode 4 of Earth Movers in the show notes. All right, so yes, I'll be back next week with a new episode. Until then, I do wish you powerful, joyful strides forward, and please enjoy this REAIR of the episode featuring Verna Volker.
You know, when growing up, one of the Navajo stories that is often shared with us is, you know, Navajos, when we wake up early, and when we wake up early, we run to the east to greet the sunrise. And we talk about how we greet Creator. We say our prayers to keep us in harmony and balance in this life. And when I was younger, I would hear that story or from other people, but it didn't make sense to me. I was young. Even when I was in college, I knew that, but it wasn't like a big deal to me because I wasn't a runner. But when I started running, it makes sense. I mean, it's pretty powerful now when I wake up early and I see the sunrise, and that's when I stop and acknowledge the land that I'm on, and I acknowledge, you know, who I am and the people around me, my community, and just, you know, saying these prayers. And I think it's just like a whole new, like, you know, it's spiritual for us. And I think that's what's been really neat to see on my journey, how I've embraced that and how that runs through us.
Women's running. Women's running stories.
Hello, my name is Verna Volker, and I am the founder of Native Woman Running. And my clans are that I like to introduce myself in my Navajo language is Tódích'íi'nii, nishlíi, Hashtl'ishnii, bashishchiin, dashicheei, Tódích'íi'nii, dashinalí. My clans are the Bitterwater and the Mud people, also the Tangle people and the water flows together people. I am a mother of 4 kids, been married for 23 years, and yeah, I am happy to be here to tell more of my story.
Yes, in this episode, we are featuring the story of Verna Volker, a runner and the founder of Native Women Running. But before we hear more from Verna, I want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am your host and producer, and this podcast is a proud member of the Evergreen Network of Podcasts. Now let's just get into it. Let's get into Verna's story, which focuses on how her running has evolved over time. From her being, not even a non-runner, her first experiences with running, she actually hated it. But of course that changed to the point of where she is today, defining her running journey confidently on her own terms. And by extension, she is showing others how expansive this sport can be and the deep impact it can have on our lives. But like I said, it was not always that way, and far from it. Here to tell the story is Verna Volker.
Yeah, I think when I would think about running, it was often something that you saw that was portrayed on the media, or like on TV or social media, people running, people who are very in good shape and who are non-natives, whereas that was kind of what I always was something that I saw. And even though running has always been part of our Navajo culture, it just depended on where you lived, I feel like, as a Navajo. And I just didn't really grow up with being a runner or runners around me. I had my brother and a sister who ran, but it wasn't like ingrained in like our family. And so when I took on running, it was a little bit intimidating to me because I compared it to what I saw on media of fast people, white runners who were very thin. And I was one of those who, when I started running, was probably at my heaviest. And I had 3 young kids. And that's when I was embarking on something that was really unknown to me, that was a little bit scary, but at the same time, intriguing. I think what was scary was because I had always been an athlete all my life. I played basketball, and I remember hating running, the aspect of running in like for the warm-ups or for we needed to have that part of our of training in basketball was to run laps, to sprint across the court. And that was just something I didn't have a love for. And so, but at the same time, I knew that I could do it because of just how far I went into dedicating myself to playing basketball in high school and working hard. And so it's just kind of like a crazy feeling of both like intimidation, but very intrigued by it. Like I wanted to do this. I wanted to try it.
Verna was first motivated to try this sport at a point in her life when she was under a lot of stress. She had just moved from New Mexico to Minnesota, and she'd given birth to her 3rd child just 2 weeks before the move. To put it very lightly, she had a lot on her plate, and it was having an impact on her health.
I had a preschooler, a toddler, and a newborn. And I was putting myself last. And I just remember feeling like I could do better. I know I could just take care of myself better, but it was always kind of on the back of my mind. But when my sister came in town of March of 2009, it was like she was the one that I remember running growing up. And she's like, you should start running. So we ran around this little lake. And after that, she really encouraged me to run. And from there, I just started running. I don't know what happened. I started a little bit of like just a couple miles and then just ramping up my mileage. And my whole goal was little goals of, okay, let me just see if I can run 5 miles. And it just depended on my sleep deprived self during that time. And I was just like, I just had to just try every day to get out and do what I could. And then when I signed up for a race a couple months later in August of 2009, that was when I didn't realize how much I could have trained better, but I did it. And I think that drive just kept coming. And then when I finished that race of August of 2009, that's when I think it really hit me that I could actually run. And I was like a 13.1 half marathon. And that's when I always tell people that's when the running bug hit me. Like I could actually do this. And I really felt pretty amazing, even though at the time I wasn't my skinniest, or I was still in the process of, getting healthier, but I felt amazing. And I remember my kids were there and my husband was there, and they were cheering me on, and they were just like, "Yay, mommy!" And I felt shock, excitement, joy, just motivated, and that I could probably do more. I would say, like, after that race, I eventually lost, I think, like 50 pounds, and I decided to run my first marathon, which was in 2011. And like during that time, that was when I was like really like motivated. You just kind of like you're on this high running. Like you're on this high of running. Like, wow, I could do this, and I feel unstoppable. And I remember just like running a lot and really paying attention to my time, my pace. And that's one of the races. It was my first marathon. And I think I felt like that was going to prove that I can do this. Like, but then it just really changed, because it was like, I felt like, okay, when you're going through that, it's just really a lot of pressure on you. I mean, that, and I kind of kept up that, but it wasn't really like, I wanted just to show people that, I was a newbie runner to now I could run my first marathon. And then that's when, I don't know if it makes sense, but it just kept like, every year I felt like it was changing. Every race, my journey was changing. And I feel like that's how I evolved to what I am today, where I just am not into like that. Like, I feel like I'm just a more content runner. And during that time, I just felt like in my early part of my journey, it was all about time and going faster. And then I think it just eventually wore me out. So, yeah.
After several years of road running and marathoning, of working on getting faster and chasing times, Verna was ready for a change.
And so since I had run like several marathons, people around me, or runners that I got to know, mainly on social media, were running like ultras, like trail races. And oftentimes, it's like 26.2, and like an ultra, like a 50K is 31-ish miles. And they're like, you just got to run like 5-6 more miles and you'll be an ultra runner. And so 2018 is when I started thinking about that and started running more trails. And that's when I ran my first 50K. And that was, I think, a switch of, I just always was like a road runner, and then it switched to trails. And I love that you could run slower. And I just love being outdoors. It's interesting because today when I run road races, it's really different because like how dare you stop? It's like no one should walk in road races. It's like not that anyone's telling me that. It's just part of the culture. Like you just keep running, you know. Whereas like trail and ultras, it's like you can walk. Like you can walk. You can actually even eat while you're walking. So it's just it's so different. And I love that you could just embrace like that. And I embraced it and I really enjoy it. It's like, even though it's part of running, trail running and ultra running is very different. It's smaller, the community is smaller. And I think that's that was my new phase. And I kind of stuck with that. And I think that's when my mental shift, my strength came in, because I realized that maybe I always had mental like strength, but I didn't realize it until I started running ultra races, that I was like, oh my goodness, like my body's so tired, but I'm still running. And I think that's what I've really enjoyed, is just changing from switching to like road races to trail races.
Ultra trail running was a whole new realm of running for Verna to explore.
I think I liked the challenge of it. So when I did my first 50K, it was really muddy. It was a muddy race because it was in April of 2018. And, Minnesota winters can get really long, but then we have all the snow melts. And so it turns into mud. And I remember basically running in a lot of mud. And so after that, I thought this has to be, I don't think that was a really good first experience of a 50K, but then I started running. I tried some more later on in the spring and then the summer, and I felt like that was like confident. And so I think I did like 3 50Ks, and I was like, okay, let's try to push further, And I think that's when I learned like, oh wow, every race I felt like ultra races just showed me that I could do more than I thought I could. And during that time, actually, I met my coach online. My coach, who's just a follower on Instagram, and he's like this big ultra runner and very, I would say, hardcore. And, I was just meeting so much different people on my social media, and he would just like comment of like certain things. Or then one day I asked him for some advice about, like this 50K that I had, I really struggled uphill, what would you suggest? And from then, he just took me under his wing and started training me. And he still trains me today. And I think that's really helped with my running, is having someone who is very knowledgeable in ultra running to kind of guide me, and to just really say that I could do that. Like, you could do this. I think that was when it switched over to like, let's try a 50 miler. Do you consider that? I was like, I never considered it. And, I finished my 50 miler, and then I did like 100K. And I think it's more of a push from my coach sometimes when I'm like, I don't want to hear that. But it's nice to have someone who is confident in who you are and you as a runner. And that's how coach should be, of course. But I think that has helped me in that journey.
Once Verna had completed her first 100K in 2021, her coach proposed the next most obvious challenge, and that was to tackle a 100-miler. Verna had done her 100K at the Javelina Ultra Race. This is a very popular ultra. It takes place every year in Arizona in October, right around Halloween, and it runs on a course that is a loop. The number of loops you do depends on how far you're running, because not only is there a 100K at Javelina, there's also a 100-miler. So it seemed like a perfect choice for Verna to do her first 100-miler at that same event.
I just thought like, okay, I can do this, let's try it. And so there is a lot of training. It's a lot of training, like back-to-back runs. And that was kind of like very time consuming. But I had signed up for the Javelina 100, and the year before that, I did the 100K. And so I figured, hey, this would be perfect. I think I just have to do five loops. And so I didn't finish. That was like my first DNF because I got extremely like heat exhaustion. It was so hot for me because I'm here in Minnesota and cooler temperatures to us is like 50 degrees, where for them it's like still 85, you know? And so when I was able to run it the year before, I felt like I did pretty good. Just trying to stay cool. This time around, it was a really struggle because I have extreme asthma, and I feel like every year my asthma just gets harder in temperatures. And so that year, I felt like, why is this so hard? And it's not like I didn't train. I worked very hard on training, and I just kept my pace like I was supposed to, but it just seemed like I was working twice as hard. And so when I got to the second loop, I stopped at the medic and I just said, yeah, I'm really having a hard time. And they're like, it's because of the heat. And, and I struggle with that because sometimes I'm like, okay, I can do it. I can push through it, like most runners say. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I could really hurt myself. I could get worse. And so that was a decision to like, okay, I can't even imagine going like 3 more times around this with the breathing that I have. And then my fingers were swelling up. I just felt like, oh my goodness. I got to like 30-ish. I think I got to 50K. And I was disappointed. I was like, but at the same time, usually when I struggle, I call my husband. And I call him and I always say, what if I don't finish? And he's always very good about listening. He's like, you just keep doing your best. And you know what? No matter what, we are so proud of you. And I think that's what, like, always his words, like, we're still here. We still love you. And so I'm just like, thank you. And I just felt like it was the right move to do, to DNF. And then when I got to the tent where there's, when you can say that you're done, there's all these other people who are really great shape, who are like hardcore. And when I looked around, a lot of them they were done. And I was like, okay, it can be anybody who can get a DNF. It's just not like a certain type of person, like anyone who, even those who are in shape can be like DNF. So then that made me feel better. And so then I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to attempt this. I did what I could. That was a nice goal. Let's move on. Then my coach is like, you're really still in good shape to consider running another 100 miler. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do this. And I thought to myself, I need to go somewhere where I can breathe, somewhere where it's flat. So all I did was Google flattest ultra races in the United States. And sure enough, there was a race out in Savannah, Georgia. And they're hosted by the Yeti Trail Runners. And it's called Dark Anchor. And it's in Savannah. And basically you do it's like a 3-mile-ish loop. So you do it like 33 times. And so I was like, that sounds good. And so I reached out to the race director because it was full. And I was like, oh, do they have a waiting list? And so then I emailed him and I said, hey, I tried attempting my first 100-miler in Arizona. I'm just trying to do it, and I always say I'm the founder of Native Woman Running. I would like to represent my organization there. And immediately the race director is like, you're coming down, you're invited down here. So I got down there with no crew, by myself, because it was like a 3-mile loop and there was one aid station. So it wasn't like, you really needed a crew, but at the same time, I was like, I think I needed a crew as I look back. And so what I liked about it was the 3-mile loop, I just kept moving to go round and round. And I felt like my breathing was pretty well. This is like mid-January. The weather's nice there down in Savannah. And I feel like I did pretty well. But going into the next day, there was times where I wish I had a crew because I feel like I wasn't getting the hydration the food, because usually my crew, the people that crewed me are from Tucson. And so when they crewed me for my 100K, it was like they sat me down, they refilled my bottles. One of them would take care of all my blisters. So I had to learn how to pop my own blisters, which I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, what am I doing? It's like 2 a.m. and I'm like trying to pop my blisters. And they would force me to eat. They would say, you need to eat. And I really needed that when I thought about it. And I had to do that all by myself. And not that the people around me were not helping, because there was people next to me who were giving me food. But I remember when I got to the 100K, I decided to take a nap. And I remember crawling into my sleeping bag for 15 minutes and I fell asleep, woke up 15 minutes later and continued. And I kept running and I kept running, but I was getting very tired and I knew time was like slipping away. And I really had to that was hard because I was like, I might not finish this race. I might not get to 100 miles. And again, I called my husband and he's like, you're doing amazing. And at that time, physically, my body was shutting down. And that's what 100 milers do to you. I was like, oh my goodness, what's happening to me? And I think by the end, I was kind of slouched to my right and I couldn't put myself upright. And I think it was like the lack of potassium. People around me gave me they gave me poles to do one more last loop. And that's when I was just like beat and time was up and I couldn't go anymore. And I was like at 94 miles. And I'm like, if I just had maybe an hour and a half, I think I could have done it. And I thought about keep going. I thought about just like leaving my stuff and do it on my own. But I think that was just like, okay, you know what? I put everything I have into this race and I'm done. And that was it. So it was bizarre. And I think what my coach, I felt bad because I thought, oh no, I'm going to like disappoint my coach. But he was very gracious. And he reminded me, he said, you did amazing, especially without a crew. And you did that on your own without anyone helping you. And that says a lot. And I think that made me feel really good because often people say, how did you do that by yourself? And I have to be careful because sometimes I say, well, I just ran 94 miles and people will they're not mean about it, but they're like, Verna, you ran 94 miles. That's good. And I'm like, I did. And so I got to remember that. And I am proud of myself. So I think that was interesting. And what happened to my body was crazy. It just really made me see what a 100 miler can do to you, to your body. Like I ended up having sores created. I don't know, I got sores in my mouth. My fingers were cramping. I was seeing things through the night. I was hallucinating. And then my body, at the end, when I was slouching to the right, I was like, what's this happening? What's happening to me? You see how much it really wrecks your body in ways that I don't feel like people who run 100 milers tell you about it. But I felt like the best, my breathing with my asthma, and I have some inflammation on my right knee. None of that was an issue at this race. And I think it was just being there, because a lot of times people with asthma will move down south or areas where they can actually breathe. That was the best breathing I felt. My knee did not feel like it had any inflammation. My body felt great during that time. And now, I'm just like, if I want to run any more long distance, I'm going to have to head back to Savannah, because I just felt like that was just, it was comfortable. I mean, it wasn't comfortable at the same time. It just I felt good, my body physically. And so I think that's just I'm okay with it. I'm okay with what I did. And I just, what can I do? I mean, I can keep trying to achieve that goal, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, how far can I go far? How far should I go? And how much time do I have? So I have to take all that stuff into consideration because it's a lot of time. it is so much time to train and to travel, and I just have to pick and choose what works for me and what works for my family. I think being a mother really helps me to take care of myself, because I want to be able to have the energy to be with my kids, have the energy to help them to stay healthy. And I think just my community, being a founder of an organization that involves running, I want to make sure that I'm also practicing what I preach, and that I'm doing what a leader should be doing, and that I'm sharing my journey, that I'm not a fast runner, I'm not the skinniest runner, but just allowing people and getting them to understand or inspire them by saying that if I can run this, you can too. And I think that really is also a motivation to keep going. And now I've been more, with my coach, sometimes he wants me to do beyond, and I enjoy the inspiration and the motivation and the accountability, but sometimes I have to say, I can't do this, which has been really good because he's very understanding, because he has kids. And there's times that I've been more just careful on how I plan my races, because of just who I am as a person and what I'm carrying. And so I think overall it's been just a motivation to inspire my community and inspire Native women who are maybe older, or who started as new runners, who didn't grow up running, that they could do what I do, and just being able to motivate those around me too, and just set an example to my kids. I think I have 4 kids, so 2 of them are getting into running. And I reminded my son, he's a freshman, and he started cross country, and he's really just got this running bug. And I just reminded him, I said, you know what, running runs through your culture. And he's like, yeah, I know, Mom. And I said, so go out there and do the best that you can. And he's embracing that. And so I didn't have someone telling me that, because I didn't run when I was younger. But I feel like that's what I need to be doing now as a mother. And yeah, so I think it really does connect me to my culture, to my people. And I never realized how it just resonates with a lot of Native runners. And I'm happy that we share in that experience in running.
Verna is defining running on her own terms, to be a leader, to represent, to set an example. And she is also discovering the deeper meaning it brings to her own journey.
I really feel like my journey as a runner really correlates with my healing journey as an individual, with childhood trauma, and finally addressing that in the last 2 years of my life. And I think losing, I lost my mother 2 years ago, and I've lost my father when I was 3, and losing 3 siblings. It correlates in a way where, when I started earlier in my journey, I'd never ever thought that I could be running in honor of my parents, or at the time, my father. Those things were never in my mind. But it has switched over, where now when I run races, I always put their names of each of my siblings and my parents' name on my shoe. And I run in honor of them every race. And so I think it's really motivated me that every run is dedicated to them. And it's just really change. And I think even if it's the slowest race, the hardest race, it's just all in honor of them. And it helps every step or every race. It's just really healing. And I think as a Native person, and the way we look at running, it's our medicine. It helps us just get through those hard moments, and being able to cry through the runs, and being able to talk to those, your you're running out in the middle of the night and you're thinking about them. And I think that really has been my motivation.
Verna has discovered that this is a motivation that is also shared by many others.
It's been really interesting, like with working with Native, especially my own people, and how it really resonates with them too about running in honor of our loved ones. And I think that really helps a lot of our community. Not that we have a lot of good runners who are really good competitors, but some of us here are just trying to get through it, trying to get through our healing. And so we're using running in those ways. And I think that's been really neat to hear, and especially Native women sharing their stories with me makes me realize that what I'm doing is good work, and I'm happy to do it.
And I am very happy that Verna is willing to share her journey here and with many others. Her work not only helps those she is close to in family and community, but also serves to expand the greater running community. And she demonstrates the powerful ways that running can show up in our lives. I want to thank Verna so much for coming on the podcast and sharing her story. And thank you, Verna, for all the work you do with Native women running and just expanding the running community to be a bigger, better, more welcoming space. Please look to the show notes for links to how you can keep up with Verna Volker and with Native women running. And thank you for being here. I love making these episodes, but I know that the power of them lies in you listening and also in you sharing. I would love it if you would share this episode or the podcast as a whole with someone you know would appreciate it. And please know that I do not make this show by myself. All of the original music that you hear is made by Cormac O'Regan, and he does that from his studio here in Cork, Ireland. And that is going to do it for me. I am Cherie Louise Turner, your host and producer, and I am coming to you from my home closet studio, also in Cork, Ireland. And until next week, I do wish you healthy, joyful strides forward.
Women's running. Women's running stories.